Hello friends, I'm back in Montreal after 5 years back in my old residence for now. It's a bit surreal. This is where it all happened, where I record Birelli Lagren, Ulf Aquenius, Pat Martino, all these great players. It happened right here. Anyway, it's 6 a.m. and I'm primed up. I haven't had coffee yet. I don't drink coffee anyway. And I'm about to leave to go teach at Django in June in about an hour or two. But I thought I'd make this one video here. So last week I talked about quote-unquote historical approach, authenticity. And today I want to talk about something along those lines. It's namely the role of the rhythm section, and more specifically the time feel, in I guess older styles of jazz. This is a very subjective topic, so I want to insist on that. One thing that I've noticed in the modern era, a lot of people, when they go to teachers or schools, I'm generalizing here, right? So it's not the case for everyone, but one common thing that I tend to see is that they're taught, jazz is free, you do whatever you want, just feel it. And again, philosophically, I agree with that. You have to feel, you have to understand, you just do what you want. But if you start that way, in my opinion, there's this danger of things getting too chaotic if there's too much freedom. And the proof is when you go to jam sessions, you have sometimes these rhythm sections, you have absolutely no idea what they're thinking in their head. They're playing anything but the beat or the song. I'm sure many of you who are semi-pros or pros who have gone to jam sessions know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a lot more common than one might think. I feel this is a little bit of a result of that kind of like, yeah man, just feel it, that school of thought. And when you check out rhythm sections of the old era, like the 30s, the 40s, 50s, 60s, you will hear, you will witness something a little bit different. You will witness the evolution of how things start to get free. So in the 30s, it was the swing era where it was all about dancing. And in that era, the pulse is extremely important. It has to be very, very, very clear. So the drummer, the pianist, the bass player, everyone is equally responsible, and you have to provide this solid foundation where you feel excited. And as far as the guitar goes, where that's the era of the chunk 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 rhythm. Different players have different sounds. In the early days of Django's Hot Club era, I've talked about this in other videos. It was less accented, but it's still fairly staccato. Like I don't know. Like that. And I don't know why they changed, but sometime in the mid-30s, the Hot Club, maybe because there was no drummer, they wanted more push, more oomph, they decided to change it to this. A heavier accent on the 2 and 4, which, according to my research, is not something that you hear too much in the 1930s American bands. And if you have examples where you do hear that kind of rhythm, please let me know. I'm actually curious. And last week, I had mentioned they use thicker chords, like a G like this, instead of a G6 like this. Again, I'm not saying that this was not used, but this was very, very typical of the 30s. That in itself is not necessarily such a big deal, whether you use this or this, but it's still nice to know. What I want to talk about here is the beat, the pulse. In some ways, the metronome is a little bit useless. If you really pay attention to a lot of recordings of the past, first of all, they didn't have digital metronomes like we do today, where it's super calculated and precise. Everything was more or less more approximative than anything. And you'll see that bands do move in subtle ways, some more than others. And when it comes to 30s style swing music, especially when it's meant to dance, I think it's very, again, I don't like to turn this into a rule, but generally speaking, it's better to be a little bit hotter on the beat. That is to say, you don't slow down. I've talked about this in a previous video, but I've analyzed actual gypsy jazz players. When they play rhythm, they tend to put the 2 and 4 a little bit ahead of the beat. They don't do it consciously, it just happens like that. But that's what feels comfortable to a lot of gypsy players. Maybe that's what I'm doing here too. I'm not sure. You can go and analyze it for yourself. So this is really something that you have to learn to feel. But the problem is, how do you learn to feel this? Well, first of all, I think the metronome could be potentially useful. I shared this exercise a number of weeks ago, but I'll just do a little recap here. If you set the metronome to beat 1 of every beat, or every bar, or every 2 bars, that can be a good little exercise. Let me just give you an example here. So let's say this is beat 1 of every bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Slow down. I don't even know what song I'm playing. So you see, in the beginning, I was more or less with a metronome, but it was not precise. But it's a listening exercise. As I said, I don't know which video it was, but it was a number of weeks ago, a few months ago, where I shared this exercise in great detail. It teaches you to listen. And this could be very good to practice with an entire band, to see if everyone can really be on the same page. But really, honestly, beyond that, beyond the metronome, what's especially important is to play with a lot of musicians, especially good musicians who will tell you, good leaders who will tell you, hey, you're dragging, hey, you're playing you're speeding up too much and everything. And the more good musicians you play with, the more feedback you get, really critical feedback, which is not always pleasant to hear. I know this myself, but it's good for you. That's actually why sometimes I don't like to give private lessons. What I prefer to do is to teach naturally, if people are willing, of course. Let's say we go to a jam session and I can observe them. I can observe how they play with people. Because in a jam session or in a concert, we play a concert together. That's the real deal. It's one thing to be in a lesson. It's one thing to be at home. You sound a certain way. But it's a whole other thing to be in the real environment, so to speak. And that's where I can give the best feedback. How did you do? Like, were you nervous? And how did it affect your playing? And so how I learned really is from playing with a lot of my favorite players. I have been so blessed in that way that I got to play with all these great players who let me know if I was doing a good job or not. But here's the important thing. As I said earlier, no one is 100% metronomic. That's impossible. We're not robots. We all move in a certain way. And some leaders wanted to move a certain way more so than another. So basically, as a rhythm section instrument, when you're providing the beat, you have a little range from where you can kind of waver a little bit, not too much, as long as it's kind of consistent. You don't want it to be like on beat 1 to, let's say, be ahead, beat 2 to be late, and then beat 3 to be late, then beat 4 to be a knock-on. It should be, there's some level of consistency. If you're going to be kind of speeding up, it should be gradually speeding up. If you're going to slow it, it's gradually slowing down within a certain range. It's natural. But different leaders will want different things. Some leaders say, I don't want you to move. I don't want the tempo to move. But again, that's impossible. What they mean is like they want to feel comfortable. And people, in my experience, having worked with a lot of players, people will feel comfortable with different feels. And as I said, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago in one video where I was talking about playing with Moses Rosenberg, when I play with gypsies, with Sinti, what's very, very typical in Sinti gypsy jazz is to really drive the beat real hard, depending on the player. For them, when it drives real hard, it feels like it's not moving, even though it's moving. That's exactly what Angelo Debar wants. I remember, share a little story. I rehearsed a number of times when I first started working with Angelo Debar. Now I kind of understand how he wants it. He would do this little intro to Honeysuckle Rose that's, 4 bars. It's just him alone playing a lead line, whatever it was. And I was always so sure that I caught the exact tempo of his lead line. But every time he was like, nope, it's wrong. You're too slow. Nope, you're wrong. What I finally understood how I understood is, let's say the lead line is, let's just say it's this thing. that's more or less the same tempo, right? But the way actually Angelo DeBar wants it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. By the end of the song, like after many choruses, you'll probably hear. That's what feels comfortable to Angelo and to many synthie players. So when I play with synthie players, I have to really shift into that mode. Again, I'm generalizing. It's not everyone that's like that, but there are some players who want it to be more within a certain range. Some players I've met prefer that we don't speed up too much, that we're a little bit more laid back. So it just all depends. You have to play with as many players as possible. I ask people, when people ask me for lessons, I ask them, do you have opportunities to play with people? And when they say no, well, that's a huge thing. Assuming that your goal is to perform, even as a hobbyist, just play a little cafe or something, you need to play with people if you want to progress. If you really want to learn, you need to play with people, and then you need to get the feedback that will help you grow. The more good players you can play with, the more perspectives you get. That's how I learned all this stuff about this whole speeding up thing with gypsies, and then playing with for example, with Duvet Dunayevsky, which is not gypsy jazz, more like hot jazz. It's a completely different rhythmic philosophy, chordal philosophy as well. And if you look at the rhythm sections that Wes Montgomery played with, Joe Pass, everything, it's coming from this older school of jazz about where the simplicity is king. And this is where I think a lot of people, modern rhythm sections, have trouble with. They can't help, they feel like they need to make the music more interactive, more lively by adding this or that, when in actual fact you have to keep it simple. But it's a little bit of a balancing act. If you keep it way too simple, if you just do one thing, then it sounds like a machine, and that's not good either. What I'm very happy is like when I posted, I think 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks, whatever, I posted that entire Moses Rosenberg concert in Taiwan. And someone commented that the rhythm section is being very interactive. And that made me very happy. Yes, we were very interactive while keeping things really, really simple. Interactive doesn't mean like, let's say Moses Rosenberg does, and then I start copying him. What it would mean is that if he starts to play a little bit more intensively, I might do things like, what that basically means is that, let's say, I don't know which song we're playing, let's Harisaka Rose. Let's say he's playing like something very rhythmic, and then if he's playing rhythmic, I try to keep the beat really clean and clear. And then something like that. That's what I mean by interactive. You can still keep things simple but lively. And that's one of the biggest problems often when I have with bass players or pianists or whatever who have never really played old style swing music. I would tell them, with the bass, and I tell them, okay, generally speaking, it's very staccato bass lines. If you're playing like, I don't know, all of these, more like... But if you only do just that, it sounds so lame and boring. There is movement. Watch the intro segment where I'm playing bass. Notice how I keep it simple but lively. There's still, while being simple, there's still room for me to do certain things to make it not monotonous and musical. And that's the thing. A lot of bass players have trouble playing this old style because they're too good. They want to do too much. I actually started playing professional swing style bass very early on within the first year of picking up the bass. And actually I remember I went to a festival once where a bass player was really pissed off at me because we were with a group of famous players and the bass player was playing along and no one really said anything. Then at one point when the bass player took a break, I asked, hey, do you mind if I play a song? Yeah, so sure. And at that time I had just started learning to play the bass. But because I knew this music so well, I knew what it was supposed to sound like, and I started to play in quote-unquote the old style. Right away, one of the famous musicians like, oh, You're playing the real style. And I could see the professional bass player next to me who had lent me the bass, who had been playing all night, was not happy with me. He was like, just give me back that bass. Just give me that bass. So you see, it's less about your abilities, it's about the knowledge, the culture. And even still today, I don't consider myself a bass player per se, like a real bass player. I just know how to play that one style. And that one style has many different styles. It depends. Like, one thing that people think about gypsy jazz or swing music is that you have to play in two feel. That's not true at all. Sometimes you can play in four. How do you say? It's not walking bass, but it's not two feel. It's one note per in quarter notes. But sometimes you double the notes. This has to do a lot with stylistic interpretation. It depends on the situation. But sometimes people, bass players or drummers, whatever, say, oh, I want to play swing. And they always revert to kind of a stereotype. And it's not always appropriate. Let's say if you're going to play, the drummer has to play in a way that accommodates that. If not, it doesn't sound good. Everyone has to sound good together as a unit. It needs to fit like a puzzle. And if someone is doing a style that is not complementary, it's just going to sound out of place. It's a collective effort. That's what's very, very, very important. And this requires a lot of experience. Hopefully under the guidance of someone who is experienced, like me. If you want to hear, if we're ever in a jam session, I'm always afraid to say this because I don't want people to get offended or get defensive because it happens so much. That's another topic. But when I say such things, it's not like a personal thing. It's for the music. It's like, don't play two feel. Play walking bass. Play this. Play that. Or play two feel. It just depends. And over time, as you get into these situations, and especially if you get to play with a lot of good mentors, you'll start to develop the feel for it yourself. Especially in the old style, drummers are the biggest culprits of screwing things up. Because again, the modern drummer is too good. If you listen to recordings of the past, the drumming is fairly minimalist. There is, of course, interaction in the same way that I was interacting with the rhythm guitar, but it's within certain parameters. A lot of drummers nowadays, they feel too compelled to add extra things when it's completely unnecessary. And if you don't believe me, you just have to listen to the recordings of the 30s. Even well into the 40s. Drummers are way too interactive nowadays. And even well into the 50s, there are some drummers who still keep that old philosophy. If you check out recordings of, I think it's the live recording of Wes Montgomery with Wynton Kelly. I think it's Phil Jones. I think it's Phil Jones on drums. And man, the rhythm section is just so simple. Still interactive, but super simple. So that Wes Montgomery and Wynton Kelly, when they solo, they have so much freedom. They just have to do what they want to do without having to care so much about what the rhythm section is doing. And sometimes Wes or Wynton, they would do these rhythmic shots where modern drummers would be tempted to copy. They're like, oh, he's doing that shot. Look, I can do it too. But if you check out that recording of Wes Montgomery, they're doing those little shots and the drummer just keeps it simple. Every now and then, just a little acknowledgement, but not right, oh, he's doing something. Look, I can do it too. So that's very, very, very important. Listen to the music. Listen to what they're doing. They're doing it for a reason. So there you go. That's some little food for thought in terms of rhythm sections in the old style, or just in general, just the philosophy. Personally, when I accompany, my goal is to be musical and to accompany, to make it easier for whoever it is that I'm accompanying. So if we're playing a song like Girl from Ipanema, the first chord I'm going to play is not going to be something like this. Yeah, good luck finding, unless you have really good ears, good luck finding the first note for a singer. It's here. I'll probably play some of this. Right? Being very conscious about how you decide to help whoever you're playing. So that's my philosophy. Again, I fully acknowledge there's a whole like musician's music style where it's super interactive, but that's much more advanced, and you have to be very confident about that. And I think a lot of people are overconfident. They can't really do it. That's also a reason why a lot of people now in the contemporary jazz world, learners of jazz, are very afraid to go to jam sessions. They think they're not good enough. What it is that it's not that they're not necessarily good enough, but they're not used to playing with bad musicians, because there are lots and lots of bad rhythm sections at these jam sessions. So many. I go to the most popular one in Tokyo, Jazz Spot Intro. Maybe 60% of the rhythm sections are very bad. Every now and then you get good ones. And that includes professional musicians. Just because you're a professional musician or just because you're skilled doesn't mean you know how to make use of your skills in the appropriate way. This requires a lot more thought to care a lot about the music, about the art. Let's make jazz simple again. Simplicity is beautiful if you know how to use it.